People are really starting to embrace, especially paid search now. And so we're seeing that. It's one thing because it really works. I'm on the board of Sempo, and we do a study every year. And again, it's one of those things where people plan to spend more. In many cases, people are going to spend as much as 35% more on things like paid search and SEO because, again, it's starting to produce results. Here's an interesting thing from Forbes, and this is one of the type of companies that I've historically worked with. This is one that really got people's attention. These were senior executives that were saying, how were things meshing? Was it exceeding, equal to, or less than what they expected? And the vast majority were talking about SEO and paid search meeting or exceeding their expectations. So when we have senior level executives being interviewed by Forbes and they say that SEO and paid search is good, that's a good sign. It's also, there's a big disconnect because they're often the ones that don't want to spend the money on it. Interestingly enough, they asked the next question, what do you plan to spend money on? And I think this dovetails very nicely with Outrider's presentation because it will be viral marketing, those things like social media and things that help propagate the voice. But the net of this is, and the idea I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, is this idea of digital asset optimization. Everything we create that's digital somehow magically ends up in Google. And the more we can start thinking about that holistically, all the things that Tony and David are going to talk about make much more sense, but they need to be applied across multiple digital formats. So why will search marketing grow? The global, this recession you're in, we're going to force it to grow. It's becoming cost effective. The big theme at the conference this week was how do we get more out of it? How do we get more data? What are the tools? How can I get more? There was 4 or 5 sessions about ringing the towel. How do I get more out of search? They're starting to understand the direct-to-consumer benefits. And I'm going to talk about this idea of using search keywords to understand the voice of the consumer. Digital asset optimization, or using things like video and using other formats and getting them optimized, people are starting to embrace that. And lastly, this evolution of digital marketing. That was another big session, is how do we wake up senior executives to do more digital marketing? I think search is doing that. So basically, brands need this new model to be successful. The consumer is in control. They can go out and query things. As we, again, saw from Outrider's data, the more we can influence that, the better off we'll be. And the future of search really offers us a couple things. By aggregating all these digital forms of content into the search results page, it gives us a customized experience. That's what's really scaring people. How many people heard about the new personalized, whether you want it or not, results in Google? So a few of you. Basically what Google's doing now is they're basically going to serve up results. Now normally you sign up a Google account, it personalizes them for you. But what's happening is they're still going to track that data and serve semi-personalized results. So the big theme at the conference is SEO dead? If everybody's getting customized results, how can we optimize for it? The reality is if you've never queried for that, or and it's not in your cookie or a cookie associated with you, you're going to get the net neutral results. You're going to get relevancy. But as you start to query, and it's an interesting thing if you're ever presenting to your boss and they say, why is our competitor ranking higher than us? Interestingly enough, in 5 cases in the past month, it's because they were the ones clicking on their competitor results, and in the personalized search, it boosted the competitor higher than their own listing. So that's something to look at. If your boss is saying, why do they rank higher? Turn off personalized search and look at it and see if they actually are ranking higher. Results based on interest and intent. How many people have played with Bing recently? The new Bing. Okay. How many just simply went in, did your favorite query, oh, it looks like Google, and left? All right, most of you have done that. Go back and take a look. On the left side, you start to see these related searches. They're varied every time. Do a query for Taylor Swift and then do another one for Elvis Presley, and you'll see how the results. Bing, and especially now Google, are really mining what people want and what's the intent behind it. And I think the key thing that Outrider said was this idea of relevance. And that's what we're looking at. I'm going to show you some examples of how to think about it. We have an increased opportunity to dominate results. It's amazing, this idea of shelf space, now because of video. So those of you that have had a customer or competitor or somebody complain about you, you can now use things like video. I don't know if you were watching, anybody watching the tweets from the conference yesterday, but the game yesterday was how do you get spam tweets into the search results. So there's some articles out there today, but basically there was about 20 people sitting in a room yesterday using Twitter to game the search results. You could do a search for Viber, there was someone's Twitter link, the link actually went out to a site where they could buy it. A couple people made $50,000 to $100,000 yesterday because they were gaming the real-time search at Google. So very interesting how you can leverage some of these tactics. But this idea is just that. We can now own the shelf space if we're collaborate, if we use things like social media, if we use things like videos. And for those of you that have a reputation problem, it is a way to displace and push down negative listings. And we're finding that all of this social media stuff, good or bad, is ending up in Google and Bing and Yahoo. And it is a great way, actually, for you to dominate that, especially internationally. Many users don't understand your brand, and if they do a query for something and they see multiple listings for your company, they immediately assume that you must be the biggest or best because you have so many listings. Here's an example. I was in Singapore, and I did a query for Sony Bravia, and you see the videos actually come up higher than the web pages. We're seeing that. We're seeing press releases. What's interesting, and I know the people in the back can't see it, the bottom is Gizmodo. And Gizmodo is a review site, and we've watched these guys. What happens is Sony sends out a press release about a new product. Gizmodo grabs that press release, and within 45 minutes of that release going out, they've already optimized, created a page, basically pulls it in like a review, puts it up, and 30 minutes later, it's in the first page of Google. And they're bringing all this traffic into their website. So if we create a press release that's sound, again, with those feature function attributes, we're able to guide people down a particular path. And again here, 37,000 pickups from various social media things around the phrase Sony Bravia. So we've got to expand our lens, and we've got to look at what drives searcher stimuli. Is it something they saw on TV? Is it something they saw on social media? Again, this ties right back to what we saw in the previous presentation. And an example of this, Toyota came out with this idea of third generation Prius. They didn't just say new Prius. And so that gave us what we call a byte word, or a word that we can watch how many people go and query or interact with that once they've seen the commercial. This was a mailer, and they introduced another phrase called touch tracer display. So I have a Prius, so I was very curious. My car doesn't have that, so I went and looked to see what it was. And what was interesting is when you do that query, third generation hybrid, third generation Prius, they have the paid search. They also have the organic. Well, when I did the query for touch, the tracer little gauge thing, nothing. The only thing that was there was a video that someone else had done about the product. So they were losing a huge opportunity to introduce me to a concept that they were already having in mainstream advertising.